Hey, welcome to episode 5 in the series. As you might have noticed, we've skipped over number 4, which is actually a GeoGebra activity that you should have done a while ago. To take a look at our work for today on transformations, digging into the very first question. By now you've worked on these questions and maybe this is just checking over your work. So don't start this video until you've actually begun the work on your own. So in this question right here, it's a slide downward followed by a reflection over the line L, and the math vocabulary that we'll use for this will be that it begins with a translation, which is a slide, and then afterwards it's followed up with a reflection over the line that's there. It's not the y-axis, it's nicknamed line L, so it's a reflection over line L. Alright, well, if you didn't do question 2, or you think maybe you've got the idea now, why don't you go ahead and try question number 2 without me, taking a look at what's happening there with those transformations. So here are the answers if you're ready. We're starting off here in quadrant number 1, and we're turning the shape to put it into quadrant number 2, and then finishing up by putting it in quadrant number 3 somehow. So, well, let's just take it one move or one transformation at a time. So the very first move that's occurring here is a rotation or a quarter turn to the left. Now, how many degrees is that turn actually? Well, if we connect B with B prime, using the origin as the center of the rotation, you can see that it's forming a 90-degree angle right there at the origin. So this one begins with a rotation or a spin of 90 degrees, centered at the origin. And now to place the triangle from 2 onto the triangle on number 3, it could look either to be a translation or a reflection. And the way to tell is to take a look at the before and the after. So point A is starting off over here, A prime, and it's becoming this point over here, A double prime. And you can see that since it's close to the x-axis in both cases, the A has been flipped over the x-axis. If it was a translation, A prime would start there, and then A double prime would end up down over here. So this is a rotation of 90 degrees, then a reflection over the x-axis. Now, a little extra information for you on these questions. Whenever you're dealing with reflections, translations, and rotations, and only those moves, those are considered to be rigid motions. And that's a vocabulary word that if I didn't use yet in class, I will be using a lot this year. These are rigid motions. And the thing about rigid motions is that rigid motions, well, the word rigid is actually the word that describes them, that they're solid, that they're tough, that they're not going to be squished or pulled or stretched. In a rigid motion, the object starts off looking as it is, and after the rigid motions occur, it still has the same shape and the same size. So rigid motions keep the images congruent. That's a phrase that we use quite often. The images will keep the motions, rigid motions will keep the images the same size and the same shape. Okay, looking at question number 3, they're asking us to do 3 things. To translate the triangle that they gave us, they want us to push it in this direction. They also want us to reflect the triangle over this line. And the third thing they're asking us for is for us to state the coordinates of the final answer. So there are 3 things we need to do. First of all, translate. Okay, so the triangle is starting off here, and we're asked to be pushing it 4 spaces to the left, and 3 spaces up. So you can visually track that in your head. It's starting here. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the left, and 1, 2, 3 spaces up. After that, it's asking us to take that answer and reflect it over the line y equals 1. Well, the line y equals 1 is a horizontal line that goes through y equals 1. Now we need to take each of these points and translate them. So this was the brand new t. When we reflect that over the line y equals 1, it was 2 spaces below the line. It will end up being 2 spaces above the line. So my final answer, I'm stating where the brand new point t is, which is at the point -5, +3. And I have to do that for the other points as well. So the brand new point S ended up at 1, 0, and when it gets reflected over that line, it'll be 1 space above it at 1, 2. So S double prime is at 1, 2, and then finally point R ended up at R prime after the translation, and when it gets reflected over that line, it was 3 spaces above the line. It will end up being 3 spaces below. So there's the brand new R at -2, -2. And quickly drawing that there as I did there in blue or purple, the answer does look correct. Remember that we should end up with the same size and the same shape, since all we did were rigid motions. So these were rigid motions. They kept the images congruent. Last question. They're asking us to rotate a triangle 180 degrees and then reflect it over x equals 1. So looking at the picture, a rotation of 180 degrees is actually turning the paper upside down. So you could do this by just taking the paper and turning it upside down, and that will be the answer that you're looking for, that picture. So keeping track either in your head or writing down the coordinates of where this answer is going to be, you could record the answer. So -1, -2, -5, -2, and -2, -5 is the location that we want to record. Or just keep that picture in your head, twist your paper back, and then draw what you just saw. It might be easier to record the points down though. So the brand new point Z ends up being here. The brand new X, well, let's get Y down first. Y would end up here, and the brand new X be right there. So that actually does look right for the very first transformation that they asked us to complete. And one reason why I can tell that it's correct is because it's a rotation and it should keep the size and shape the same. So it looks identical except it's just been turned. Last part is to reflect it over the line x equals 1. Now the line x equals 1 is a vertical line that goes through x equals 1. And all I have to do then is to take my new image and flip it over that blue line. So point Z would end up 2 spaces to the right of the line. Point X would be, the new X would be 3 spaces to the right. And Y was 6 spaces away. Y prime was 6 spaces away from the line. So it will end up being 6 spaces away from the line to the right. So that wraps up another episode. Keep on working really hard and make sure that you are prepared for the future challenges. Have a great day.